Hi, it's Michelle at Growing the Good Life, and today I'm talking about how to choose the best fertilizer for the onions you grow in your garden. After you watch this video, you'll know how to choose the right onions for your region, what the two critical phases of onion growth are, and how to support both of them so you can grow the biggest onions you've ever seen. So let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. Onion fertilizer needs are different at different stages of growth. Most fertilizers come in either a solid or liquid fertilizer form, and they're made of three main ingredients or macronutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now, these are the three nutrients that are important for plant growth and health, and each one of them is responsible for different aspects of plant development. And let's go right into that. Nitrogen helps plants produce green leaves and stems. Phosphorus helps produce flowers and fruits, and potassium helps plants resist disease and pests. So onions need different types of fertilizer at different stages of their growth. They need a balanced fertilizer with an even NPK ratio at planting time, and they need a high nitrogen fertilizer the rest of the time. So you see this big, beautiful onion here. You're going to be able to grow these big, beautiful onions the same way that I do by following this fertilizer regimen. I have a lot of friends who come to me and they say, Michelle, I can't grow onions like yours. I put the sets in the ground the same time you do, and I don't know what's wrong. So we're going to get to the bottom of this right now so you can see what's wrong and fix it. All right, so as we said before, let's go over it one more time. This is what you're going to learn when you watch this video. You'll learn the three basic macronutrients in all fertilizers, the two ways to grow onions, and how to choose between those two types of onions based on your goals, the three kinds of onions, and you're only going to pick one of these at a time, and it's based on your latitude, and what are the two phases of all onion growth and development. For no matter which kind of onions you grow, they have two phases of onion growth and development, and I'm going to teach you how to support each one of those. Now, we talked earlier about nitrogen, leafy green growth. Phosphorus supports root growth, shoot growth, fruits and seeds. And potassium will help make sure you have sturdy stems, flowers, and helps you reduce your succumbing to disease or increasing your disease resistance. So there are two main ways to grow onions. And you probably, if you've just started growing onions, you probably are looking to grow them from sets. And you can purchase sets. I started out growing onions from sets from Dixondale Farms. I will put the link down below to Dixondale Farms. They are amazing. They are a wonderful place to start. And most people, if they order their onion sets online, are ordering from Dixondale. They will give you about between 50 and 70 onion sets or bulbs per set, or sets per bunch. And those are usually best planted in the spring. That's when they ship out all of their onions. So you're going to be able to purchase these sets for anywhere between $10 and $20 per set. And each of those sets will give you 50 to 70 plants. So you're talking about a pretty cheap onion, even if you go the set route. And onions from set have been started off from seed by the grower. Then they are dug out of the ground at a certain stage. They kind of go dormant at that point, and then they're shipped to you. So here's an example of what my Dixondale onion sets look like when they're shipped to my house. The picture on the left is a picture of all of the different sets. Now you can see what I got. I think I have I've got 9 sets here. That's what I planted last year. 2 sets of candy apple red, and then several sets of candy. I think I have 4 sets of candy, and then 3 sets of Texas early white. So I had a really good mixture of onion sets. And in the picture on the right, you can see I have laid all of my onion sets out. I've already fertilized with my Espoma Garden Tone. So I started that out, and I have 2 rows of onions on each 30-inch bed in that garden space right there. So, and looks like I planted them probably around 6 to 8 inches apart, probably closer to 6 inches. And those 2 rows are, I don't know, they're probably 12 to 15 inches away from each other. So that's how I grow them, or how I plant them when I grow them from set. Now you can also grow them from seed. That might sound a little bit daunting to you. If you're just starting out, you might not want to grow. You might not feel comfortable doing that. But if you are comfortable growing from seed, I would absolutely do that if I were you. The reason is obviously there's a big cost savings. Your onion seeds are fractions of a penny per seed. And even by the time you end up growing them and giving them all this beautiful fertilizer, you'll still only have 6 cents per onion. And a lot of these onions can grow up to a pound. So you really want to make sure that you're investigating that if you're into it or interested at all, because it's a really good way to go. Another benefit of growing from seed is that in my latitude specifically, I'm in zone 7B, 8A in Western North Carolina. I am able to grow onions 2 times per year. I can grow them, I can plant them out in the fall and overwinter and harvest in early spring. And then I can also plant a different batch in early spring to harvest in late spring, early summer. So I have the advantage of being able to grow 2 rounds of them when I grow my own seed. I don't have anybody who's willing to, no one will mail order me sets in the fall to plant out, but I can certainly grow my own. And that's what I do. I actually have about 300 onions in my garden right now they were planted from seed this past August, and I set them out into the garden late September, early October, and they are rocking and rolling. They're just kind of bedded down for the winter, and they're waiting for our days to get a little longer so they can start to grow. So let's talk now about the 2 phases of growth and how you're going to support each of those. No matter what kind of onion you grow, these 2 phases will be the same. So the first thing you're going to do is what I call phase 1. And this is amending your soil just prior to planting your onions, or right when you plant them is fine. You're going to pick either something like a Biotone Starter Plus, and again, I'll put the links down below, or you're going to pick something like Garden Tone. And those products are both organic granular fertilizers, and they have a quick mix of quick release and some slow release nutrients, along with some mycorrhiza fungi and some other nutrients that are going to prompt vigorous root growth for you. The quick release portion of that fertilizer will begin to fertilize immediately, and the slow release fertilizer is going to reach its full capacity at about a month. So a balanced fertilizer like these guys really is what you want to do before or at planting. Either right before or at planting, you're going to put that general purpose granular fertilizer, and you want it to have a higher P than a K or N. Okay, so you want your your phosphorus to be the higher portion of that when you first plant. All right, so then once you're planting, once you've got your sets in the ground, you're going to water them in really well, and you're going to wait around 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to wait 3 to 4 weeks, and then at that time, you're going to start fertilizing these sets with a high nitrogen fertilizer every 2 weeks. Okay, so this is going to get you into phase 2. This is the feeding schedule that you're going to follow if you want to get the biggest onions possible. These are insanely delicious, and you are going to save so much money when each of your onions is a pound a piece, and you only paid 6 cents to grow them. It's insane. So you're going to side dress those onions every week with a high nitrogen fertilizer. And in my garden, I use things like either bone meal or alfalfa, and I use about a half a cup of dried blood meal per 10 row feet. So I will make a little furrow between those onion rows. If you remember back to my picture, you can see those 2 onion rows. There's about 12 to 15 inches between them. I'm going to make a very shallow furrow. I would say the furrow is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches deep down the very center of those 2 rows. And then I'm going to sprinkle the blood meal fertilizer at the rate of about half a cup per 10 row feet. So my garden rows are about 20 feet in that particular section of garden. So I would use 1 cup for that entire row. And that's pretty economical because that fertilizer does not cost a whole lot of money, just 1 cup of blood meal every couple weeks. So you're going to keep doing that until that's during the green growth phase. You want as many green leaves coming up as possible. So that's why you're really hitting that onion with nitrogen. The bulbing phase is going to happen and as a result of the day length. So you're not really prompting the onion to bulb with the fertilizer. What you're doing is with that high nitrogen fertilizer is you're creating that, I call it the solar cell or the power plant for the onion. You can't support a massive bulb if you don't have a lot of green onion growth at the top above ground to support that. And so that's what that constant nitrogen fertilizer is doing for you. And the reason you're planting in a furrow or you're fertilizing in a furrow is because you don't want that high nitrogen fertilizer to touch your greens or your roots. If it touches either of those, it will burn them. And yes, organic fertilizer can burn your onion roots or greenery just like any other type can. Okay, now there are 3 types of onions that you can grow, and knowing exactly which of those onions you should be growing in your region is the key to growing big, beautiful onions. So this is very determined by your latitude, and you can see on this map, if you live in the long day section, you're going to go for long day onions. If you live in the intermediate day section, you can go for intermediate day. And if you live in the short day section, which are the southern, more hot climates, you are going to go for short day onions. And the reason that you're going to do this is that different onions need a certain amount of daylight hours in order to bulb up. And if you buy and plant the wrong kinds, your onions will never form a bulb and they'll never bulb up for you, and you'll be sad. It'll be just awful for you. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to have that happen to you. So generally speaking, your short day onions only need days of 10 to 12 hours of sunshine to trigger that bulbing phase. And so these are the ones that I grow in the winter. You know, I remember I told you that I plant in fall and harvest in spring. Those are short day onions. I would never put intermediate day or long day onions in over the fall and winter here because our days just never get that long. And so I choose short day onions for that. When I want to grow my spring onions, I then go to the intermediate day onions, and that does correspond with my map zone, as you can see here. So intermediate day onions need 12 to 14 hours of daylight. So when they start to get that, that's when the bulb will start to form. And as soon as you see that bulb start to form, you're going to stop your nitrogen supplementation. That's how you know you don't need to continue with that anymore. And you actually really want to stop doing it at that point. It doesn't do your plant any good, and it can cause a lot of harmful fertilizer runoff if you keep using too much high nitrogen fertilizer. And you'll notice the way you can tell that your onions are bulbing up seems a little obvious, but you'll start to see the soil pull away from the bottom, and you'll begin to see more and more of that white bulb form. And just when you start to notice it is when you can stop. So let's get back to this. Intermediate day onions, as soon as that day length starts to get over 12 to 14 hours, that's when those onions are going to start to bulb up. And then long day onions are strictly for the northern climates. They need really long days of sunshine to form a bulb. So those are perfect for spring planting in your northern regions of the United States. So that's just how you would decide which ones to grow. And that's how you really want to be sure if you're going to grow sets or you're going to grow seeds, make sure you choose the correct ones for you. And if you go into a local hardware store, a lot of times they'll be mislabeled. Most of my friends who have issues with this have said that they just went to their local, hardware store, farm and feed or whatever, and they just pick up whatever's in the bin, and chances are it's the wrong onion and they didn't even know it. So just pay attention to that. Now, in my last section here, I want to talk to you about, here's a pretty picture of my onions that are in the ground right now. These are the ones that I planted. These are my short day onions. They are coming up. They're rocking and rolling. They're actually not growing very much right now, but as soon as the day length starts to get long enough, around the 1st of February, they're going to start taking off. You can see here, this picture on the left is a perfectly beautiful a bed of onions, I should say, 2 rows to a bed. You can see how far away they are. In the middle of those 2 rows is where I put my trench of blood meal. And on the right, you can see these guys have begun to bulb up. We're obviously not giving them any more nitrogen at this point, and we're just waiting for them to have enough dieback of some of the outer leaves. Sometimes the neck will get soft and they'll start to flop over. That's how you know they're ready to pick. This is a close-up picture of the onion set, or the onions that I grew from seed, and you'll see how beautiful they are. And I've heard that once you grow from seed, you won't go back to sets, because when you grow your own from seed, you grow them from seed and then you immediately put them in the ground, and there's no planting shock at all. Whereas with sets, you will get some planting shock because they dig them out of the ground, they chop the roots off, they bundle them up, ship them out. Those plants will dry out, they'll be out of the ground for weeks. And it takes a fair amount of time for them to rebound from that. So you don't get that when you plant yours from seed. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. Again, just more fabulous onion footage for you here. This is just another bed these are Texas early whites that are about to be picked. This was from a couple seasons back, I think. Let's talk about the money here. Growing onions can save you serious cash. And I don't know about you, but I feel like every time I go to the grocery store, my jaw drops to a new low because of the prices of everything in there, especially the produce. So my homegrown candy onions weigh close to a pound each, and many of them weigh over a pound. That's just a fact. It happens quite regularly. Now, those onions will cost me either 6 cents a piece to grow by seed, or 14 cents a piece to grow if I had to buy the set. Now, those exact same onions, well, same except for the grocery store onions don't taste as good, cost over $1 each at the grocery store. You may get them on sale. You might be lucky enough to get that, but you're probably not going to. So in this, you can see pretty easily, onions don't take up a lot of room. They don't cost a lot. They don't use a lot of fertilizer. It really makes a lot of sense if you can choose the right onion type for your latitude, and you know exactly what your fertilizer schedule is, which I've just shared with you. You should be able to do all of this. So I'm going to put all the links down below for everything we talked about, all of the fertilizers, the seeds, the set places to get onion sets. And I know you can do this. I've got a few high nitrogen fertilizers listed here. Down to earth blood meal, I like to use Greenway feather meal if you don't want to use any more of the blood. If you want to use, some people don't like to put a lot of animal byproducts in their ground and in their soil. They kind of want to lay off that a little bit. And I totally understand that. So you can also use alfalfa, which is a high nitrogen fertilizer, if you want to get away from putting so many animal byproducts into your garden soil all the time. So that is going to wrap it up for me. Thank you for listening along with me as I explain how I get these big, beautiful onions. And I hope you do as well. And let me know in the comments when you grow your big, beautiful onions and what you think about them. Bye for now.